We're going to have to get through the valley of death before we come out the other side. I don't see a way around it. I don't see a way to back out of this mess. I think we're just going to have to put our head down and bulldoze. And it's going to be painful. We've accrued so much excess baggage. So America First is going to take a while.
So America First, on a geopolitical stage, we shrink back a little bit. We exert our influence in more covert ways. Yeah, rather than overt, in your face kind of ways. What about, from an economic perspective, what does an America First world look like to you?
Well, we kind of talked about it. We're going to have to get through the valley of death before we come out the other side. I don't see a way around it. I don't see a way to back out of this mess. I think we're just going to have to put our head down and bulldoze. And it's going to be painful. We've accrued so much excess baggage. So America First is going to take a while to get there. But if we could if you could cut the government in half, I wouldn't mind seeing the number of colleges cut in half, says the professor. I don't think everyone needs to go to college. That's insane. There are kids at Cornell who shouldn't be here. They're smart kids. They shouldn't be here. By the way, you take a kid who would have gone to Cornell and you turn him into a plumber. Guess what? That kid's going to be smart. He's going to own a plumbing company soon. He's going to create wealth. You come to Cornell and you measure, here goes, I'm going to drop a bomb in our art squad, sociology. You just wasted $300,000. Don't do that. Don't let your kids do it, right? Mothers, don't let your kids grow up to be cowboys, right? Don't let your kids do that. I think we should gut the university system in the middle. That is, and this may sound self-serving, but I'm retiring, so it's not. The elite colleges do great things. Now, they're filled with a bunch of wackadoodles, yes, but there's still great things going on at Cornell, great things going on. I promise you, you see the bad stuff on TV. They are doing spectacular things on these campuses still. I promise. The community colleges serve a great purpose. The colleges in the middle are where it should go. If you've got a 500 verbal SAT and you're majoring in English, don't do it. Right? If you're majoring in gender studies, don't do it. And there are other studies, don't do it. Take a course if you want. But by the way, you take a course in gender studies at Cornell, you just spent 10 grand. That's insane, right? The parents should go, whoa, T.O. I want it to be a chem course. I want that to be an accounting course.
I think it's more status than anything for a lot of people.
But status is too expensive now.
Yeah.
So it's just getting too expensive.
So Dave, to what degree has the bloated government over the last few years crowded out private investment? And how can the new Trump administration reverse and unleash private investment once again?
Just release the government workers into the wild in it's somewhat, I think it was Eddie Dowd the other day. I've known Ed for probably 15 years. I think Eddie said you got to have the severance. So there's got to be an exit ramp. There's got to be mechanisms to get the TSA guys to figure out what to do and things like that. But you got to cut the government in half. And I've never seen an administration that looked like. And I know you've got things like Social Security. I don't know what to do with Social Security. I don't know. $175 trillion of Social Security and Medicare unfunded liabilities. I don't know what to do with that. I mean, I'm going to be collecting Social Security starting in April. I have to. I've reached the age where there's not one shred of logic not to start taking it because I'm at the max now, and I don't know. I don't know how to deal with 175 trillion of unfunded liabilities.
Yeah, that requires a lot of growth.
We don't have that kind of growth in us.
We don't have that kind of growth. Yeah. So, Dave, in a Trump 2.0 world, do you see continued momentum geopolitically away from globalization and towards mercantilism and protectionism? And if so, what are the impacts of that on commodities? And in your view, what would be the biggest opportunities that could open up for investors in those areas?
Oh, fascinating question. Fascinating question. I think we will deglobalize a little because Trump has certainly got the deglobalization bug in him. I think his inner circle might stop him, but I there will be inflation because China made stuff for us for 20 cents an hour, and that's part of that 3% compounded PE growth is that China pushed down on inflation relentlessly, selling goods for nothing. China's not going to sell its goods for nothing anymore. So, and you say, well, India's already not at the stage of sort of going to want to ramp up quality of life in India. They're not. China started with nothing, right? They supposedly, when they sent one of their leader, Dao Jinping, I think, to the United Nations, they had to sort of dig to find the money to fund his trip. Their banking system had those few foreign reserves. It was that bad. So that's not going to repeat. There's all sorts of things that are not going to repeat. I think we should make, when you make stuff here, it'll cost more, but at least the wealth will accumulate here. Right now, the wealth's accumulating all over the world.
Right. So what do you see as the impact of this shift?
Inflation.
Inflation. And so you see commodities going higher.
I would think so. I'm a little leery of commodities because I think it's a complicated story. I think I speak with great confidence now, in part because I just somebody got a podcast that it's become robotically in my skull. But I don't know how to price commodities. They really are kind of idiosyncratic. I went into commodities in 2001. I tried to do commodities. I couldn't figure out how to do it. I looked at Jimmy Rogers' Raw Materials Fund, and I didn't like the structure of it. I talked to his second in command for 2 hours. A guy named Clyde Harrison. I talked to one of their market makers, and I said no. What I did is I bought a bunch of Fidelity Energy funds, and that carried me through the knots like there was no tomorrow. It was a great decade.
Do you see a repeat in the energy side? You do.
Yes, but the problem is it will be into a gale force headwind of the correction.
Yeah.
Once you start tightening up, everything tightens up. So your goal is to just, you don't prairie dog this one. You go down, you stay in that hole, and it's not time to get gutsy with calls, in my opinion. So I've got a growing list of things I want to buy as a dip buyer, but the dip's got to be a big one.
Gotcha. All right. So the dollar's been on a rampage higher the last few weeks to months, and gold has softened a bit correspondingly. Is gold now finally in a range, in your opinion, from which it will become highly sensitive to any weakness in the dollar? And do you expect a weaker dollar during Trump's second term?
I don't know. The dollar strength is just, it's a casino in the Forex market, which means nothing. So the dollar's getting weaker. The dollar's not getting stronger. Let's be real here. The dollar's getting weaker. Right. It's a sack of garbage, but it's the smallest sack of garbage in the city dump, right? There's a new metaphor for you. And so to say the dollar's getting stronger, again, you're using a benchmark of losers. And so I don't care what the Forex market says about the dollar. Now, to the extent people trade gold and do, then gold's going to wiggle around based on that, as my guess. But if you own, what's gold returned since it got released made legal to trade again in the United States? It's up like 8% a year.
Yeah, 8.5 to 9. Yeah.
Yeah, well, one could argue maybe that's the rate of inflation.
That's a good point. Well, let's stay on gold here for a sec. So, Dave, pre-confiscation of the Russian purchased treasuries. Okay,
right.
Gold and U.S. bonds, they moved in tandem, indicating that the gold pricing was closely related to the opportunity cost of holding the bonds. Right. Well, post-confiscation, as gold has risen, treasuries have dropped, and it seems that the traders have considerably less regard for the opportunity cost of that lost interest income. What is your takeaway on this move by investors not caring about the lost interest income? And what are the ramifications downstream if this trend picks up steam?
Well, so I think there's a trope here that people have fallen into that ignores the facts, and that is, um, if you look in the past, gold responds to inflation, correct? Crudely, interest rates respond to inflation. They ought to go up together. And so this idea that when rates are up, gold goes down ignores the fact that both respond to what's called a lurking variable, and that's inflation. And so there's no reason in the world why interest rates and gold shouldn't go up together. And they did in the 70s. And so this idea, in the short term, yes, there's traders for which might produce the opposite correlation. But if inflation starts running wild, you're not going to want to own treasuries, and you're going to want to own gold.
Are you expecting a 70s style reemergence of inflation?
It certainly is one of my, if I was playing Family Feud, that would be my guess. And survey says.
Yeah. All right. So Dave, in a September 2021 interview, it's a little aged, but I think it's still relevant, with legendary investor John Paulson, he was asked, do you think gold's a good investment today? His response was, yeah, we do. There's very limited amount of investable gold. It's on the order of only several $1 trillion, while the total amount of financial assets is closer to 200 trillion. He said people will try to get out of fixed income. They're going to try to get out of cash, and the only logical place for them to go is gold. What are your thoughts on that? Do you expect that to take place, where at some point people are going to try to get out of fixed income and into gold?
Well, he's one of the many monsters in the game who are saying that, right? If you talk to, Kyle Bass, if you listen to what Gundlach says, these guys are all saying that, look, if you don't own gold, you're nuts. Ray Dalio, who I'm not as big a fan of as some people are, but he says it's, Dalio thinks we're heading into the war cycle of a 6-cycle, sort of fourth turning world. He has the sixth turning world in his book, which is a pretty good book, actually. Despite the fact I'm not a Dalio fan. And so there's too many of those big guys saying you should own gold. Buffett has not yet said it, but his father was a huge gold bug, so maybe he'll say it before he dies. So yeah, I put it this way: if I put you in a coma for 10 years, where would you want to store your wealth for those 10 years? You can't touch, you can't do anything. Yeah. Here's a question I really would like to ask. Okay, so imagine I had sold you treasuries. This is a hypothetical, but you'll understand the point. Imagine I sold you, someone was going to sell you treasuries. There's always a default risk, the formal default risk, but it's pretty tiny. And I sold you a 30-year treasury. And here's the rule: you can't sell it. You have to just own it. You're buying a 30-year treasury for your late stage retirement. You can't hedge it. Now, that's where it's hypothetical, because say, well, I can figure out how to hedge it. No, this is hypothetical. You can't hedge it. You put it somewhere, you sock it away. What interest rate would you demand to say deal?
Pretty high.
I want to, no, give me an answer. Give me an answer.
Yeah, I mean,
what interest rate? 30 years locked in a coffin.
Yeah, that would be tough because of the purchasing power loss that we've experienced just in 71. I mean, we've lost 87% of purchasing power since 71. So it would have to be awfully high. I don't have a number for you.
Double digit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what are treasuries returning right now?
4.5. Yeah.
Right. So they're mispriced. They're profoundly mispriced. You go, well, people don't hang on to them. I go, someone does. These treasuries will exist unless, of course, they do QE, which will be yet another fiasco. So they're mispriced. They're mispriced because they're statutory backstops where they have to buy treasuries. You got the petrodollar where they had to buy treasuries, although I think that might be going away. And so there are all sorts of ways to keep treasuries expensive.
Let's go into a couple of rapid fire questions here because we're starting to get to the end. Silver's been called the throwaway metal. Everything negative's been thrown at it. Much of it gets used and thrown out. It's been in supply deficit for years. It's been maligned for decades. It's still holding a $30 handle like it's the floor. Do you think the lows are in as long as it maintains that $29 to $30 range? And what are your expectations for silver?
Well, first of all, gloating, I went into gold and silver in 99. My cost basis of silver is about $3.85 an ounce. So I don't worry about silver going up and down because I go, look, I'm too smug at this point. This silver's half industrial, half precious. I think the precious metal component could pick up. It's not going to pick up as a component for sovereigns, but it could very well pick up as a component for Joe Sixpack, who doesn't like the idea of getting 1 ounce, a single coin for $5,000, that sort of thing. So it could become, the like the 10 stocks for under $10 sort of purchase at some point in the future. And so, yeah, I'd have to be optimistic. I own nowhere near as much silver as gold, but it's mind-boggling for the average person who owns zero.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the miners, Dave. The miners have been a very difficult trade for the last few years, but the miners are desperately needed for coveted production supply moving forward. They've been critically underinvested during the last 10 plus years. There's been a few periods in history where the miners' sustaining costs have been rising dramatically, and yet they still outpace the S&P. What does your analysis point to for the miners moving forward?
When gold went from 256 to 1900 and then settled back at 1200, the miners went all the way up and then all the way down. So a 4 to 5-fold gain in gold produced no gains in the miners. This is a problem. And I actually ripped into a couple of CEOs at a couple of meetings saying, you guys suck. And I just worry that you just can't buy gold without getting crushed. I really do worry about that. And so I own miners. I take my cues from a couple of smart guys like Hickey and Fleckenstein, and then I have a little Fidelity gold fund. I think it's like this gigantic index of Bre-X or something for me. If one time Einhorn said, if you got a good idea, invest directly. So I bought platinum miners, for example, and they were cheap. They had fortress balance sheets. Platinum was way out of favor because everyone said electric cars are going to own the world, ignoring the fact that you use platinum in electric cars. And I just said the bet against platinum. I'm going to bet against electric cars, and I'm going to bet in favor of the internal combustion engine. They're all in South Africa. They've gotten the snot beat out of them now. Now they paid big dividends, but they've made bad decisions. You now have a potentially failed state where white farmers are getting massacred by the masses. Is that really where you want to be investing? And so I'm having second thoughts about the platinum miners because besides the bruising, I can be patient with the bruising. That doesn't faze me. But maybe it's just a bad place to be. When you invest in a place that has no history of making money, survey says you're not going to make money.
So let's go back to the energy complex. During his many rallies and speeches, candidate Trump vowed to be extremely supportive of domestic energy production, promising to unleash a wave of new investment in oil, natural gas, coal, and nuclear energy. He also committed to ending participation in climate change initiatives, much to the horror of those on the progressive left. The shackles of federal regulation would soon be lifted, he said, and the U.S. would come to dominate the global energy scene once again. As you mentioned earlier, he's now nominating Chris Wright for energy secretary. Mm-hmm. What do you see all of this meaning for oil, natural gas, coal, and nuclear energy, and how do you plan to play it?
Well, I am I did go into energy in 2020, which the timing was perfect, but the sizing was wrong because my bearish side just wouldn't let me get over my skis. And when I finally lay it out and said, what percentage of my net worth is in energy, I go, oh, that's pathetic. So that's not a big bet. So it's not a big win. I again, I'm waiting. I'm making my list, checking it twice. But as Doomberg says, and I know who Doomberg is, and he's a real smart guy, the oil drillers will drill themselves into oblivion. So they have this nasty habit of overdoing it, and they will flood the world with energy, and all of a sudden they will go broke. And so I've been trying to figure out the best way to play this. It seems to me getting these oil companies that are kind of like royalty trusts, where they just pump out oil and charge people for it. It may be the way to play it. I just don't know, but to the extent I have to put money to work, some company, if it, has a PE of 8 and dividend of 5, and, it's not crazy. I'm not excited right now because I think it'll have a PE of 5 and a dividend of more, but I like them. I like them.
So, all right. So tell me, bearable gas, natural gas moving forward.
I don't know.
Oil.
I just don't know. When oil was 150 and some guy said it's going to go down to 35, I thought he was nuts. It went to what, negative 37?
Yeah.
Right.
What about nuclear?
So here's the bull bear case of nuclear. So I think nuke's coming back. I bet on it. I've got Gehring and Rosenzweig, who I really like. Those who want to expose themselves to nukes, these guys are smart. They know the small cap world. I've got some Cameco. I'd happily go in. Now, here's the problem. So here's the cool part. Nukes are coming back. You hear about the AI dragging the nukes back, right? I believe that it's possible that instead of saying the AI needs the nukes, that they're using the enthusiasm for AI to bring the nukes in. And my vision of the future is that Apple and Microsoft, these companies, will be in the XLE. and so but I'm a pro nuke, so fine, make up stories about AI, bring in the nukes. I'm with that. Now, here's the bear case. Second generation nukes, I am told, do not take this as knowledge. It's borrowed knowledge. I am told by a guy who ran one of these nuclear power plants that second gen nukes are phenomenal. And therefore, that's why we really should bring them back. But what's also true is they can use the energy down to the last little blip. An old school nuke, you use something like 4 or 6% of the energy, and then the rest goes to waste. You need high energy density. And then you've got these big pallets of concrete chunks of sarcophagi filled with nuclear waste. They're not that big. You can store a ton in about 100 yard by 100 yard pallet. That could all get recycled. And then the question is, do you need to mine uranium?
Okay, well, that's interesting, and that might be another episode that we need to dig into a little bit deeper. So this has been an absolute fantastic conversation. Before we wrap up here, and I asked Dave our final question, I want to point everyone over to our Substack. It is free. Go to metalsandminers.substack.com. We post free content on the consumer economy, markets, artificial intelligence, individual metals and miners, and all the expert interviews just like this one that we conduct. They're all up there. And despite the fact that he's not Dave's favorite, we give away a free gift, and it's based on the important Ray Dalio foundational premise. It's titled, If You Don't Own Gold, You Know Neither History nor Economics. This free gift is a must-read for everyone on why we all should own gold. So head over to metalsandminers.substack.com, put in your email address to subscribe, and receive the free gift on us. I'm positive that you've enjoyed the conversation that I've had with Dave as much as I have. Please let him know. Hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment below the video. All right, it's now time for the Golden Nugget segment. Dave, let's discuss this future scenario. I've been asking this of some of my recent guests. Picture a dinner party, Christmas 2029. It's got 2 tables. One table filled with very happy people for what they invested in beginning in 2024, 2025. It helped to give them financial freedom. And then there's the other table, table number 2. It's filled with people that are very sad for what they invested in beginning in 2024, 2025, because it did not help them. In fact, it hurt them in the long run. What do these 2 tables represent to you in terms of asset classes?
Table 1, the winners are people who've built a bunker of doom and are just trying not to lose money. Whatever you can do to not lose money, which includes to your treasuries and things like that, and you will lose, but it buys you time. Buys you time to think. Unless we have a hyperinflation, then you might as well kiss your ass goodbye. Table 2 are owners of NVIDIA, the Mag 7, the hypervalued stocks, the story stocks, the stocks which, like Apple, which hasn't had a new product in 15 years, Microsoft, which has not improved Word in any measurable way, if not actually made it go downhill, and has expanded its valuation fourfold over the last 10 years. And so it's a lot of its gains are just valuation expansion. Twitter, I don't think Elon's Tesla is going to do squat. I think Facebook, right? If Facebook went away today, would we lose anything? No. But NVIDIA is a great story because it's a $3 trillion potential nuking of all the retirement accounts around the world and stuff. $3 trillion, just one stock run by a guy who's got a history of nefarious behavior, who is now supposedly doing nefarious behavior. And so, so I think the people own the Mag 7, which means therefore the people own the indices, because the Mag 7 are the indices at this point. And I think the people who are betting that Mike Green's steady flow of income, of money into these accounts, Mike, I'm not picking on Mike. Mike understands this world. They will eventually be shown to be wrong, that this idea that the money will just keep flowing in. And Mike knows that there's an end here. So Mike understands, but the people who are not listening to Mike don't, that money flow will reverse. The tide will go out on that. And as they say, in any investment idea, when it becomes widely known, it's no longer a good investment idea.
So you just gave me this, spontaneous question to ask you. I know we're running out of time, but if there are millions of people that are going to be let go with a severance package, and their retirements are on these massive passive income flows going into the NVIDIAs, and could that be a trigger?
Oh, it could be a huge trigger. Again, what's going to happen to the economy if everyone loses half their net worth? And they not only have to lose it, but they can't lose it in a V bounce. They got to lose it. It's got to be given back for good.
Well, I look forward to going to that Christmas dinner party in 2029. Hopefully you're there along with the others, and we could all chit chat about the 2024, 2025 bunkers we got into. All right, Dave, thank you so much for coming on to Metals and Miners and for being so generous with your time, analysis, and ideas. It's been really cool to spend the time with you. Would you share with the viewers any important message you want to leave with those tuning in, where they could learn more about your work and how they can connect with you?
The only way you can, I actually do try to answer emails. The longer, the worse. I'm at David B. Collum on Twitter. As I don't need any more followers. I have not yet figured out what followers do. I've not yet figured out what a blue check does, because I'm not paying for either. My Twitter feed was much better when it was 350 smart people instead of, I don't know, 112,000 or something. But that's where you can follow me. If you go to YouTube and search Dave Collum, you know the drill. It just wave after wave of podcasts. And you were particularly thoughtful in your questions. Most people are not as ready as you were. So that's impressive.
I appreciate
and I
that,
apologize for being so confident in my answers. It's just that I've been grinding my brain on these things, just 12 hours a day, every day, and at some point you lose self-doubt if you're not careful. And
well, I I appreciate your perspective. I do.
Someday the stop clock will be right. And people say, well, the stop clock's right twice a day. And I go, yeah, what if it blows up your goddamn house? Right? You're going to be watching that clock pretty carefully, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, look, I really appreciate your perspective. I thank you for making time for us today. I look forward to having you back on sometime soon. So thank you for being here with us, and everybody else, thank you for watching. Want to point everyone over to our Substack. It is free. Go to metalsandminers.substack.com. We post free content on the consumer economy, markets, artificial intelligence, individual metals and miners, and all the expert interviews just like this one that we conduct. They're all up there. And despite the fact that he's not Dave's favorite, we give away a free gift, and it's based on the important Ray Dalio foundational premise. It's titled, If You Don't Own Gold, You Know Neither History nor Economics. This free gift is a must-read for everyone on why we all should own gold. So head over to metalsandminers.substack.com, put in your email address to subscribe, and receive the free gift on us.